Yeah, so my name is Christin Trujillo. I'm one of the founding partners at Maven Financial Partners, and we are a fractional CFO firm. We work with aesthetic, dental, and healthcare practices all across the country to really help these practice owners that own their own practice make smarter business decisions. So we get into the practice management software. We extract all of that really great data that's sitting in there that tells you what are your providers producing on a monthly basis? What's their revenue per hour? How much are they driving in terms of revenue per appointment? Is this appropriate? How full is the schedule? So all of that really great data that's just sitting there, we actually take that out. We analyze it and we determine, well, what levers do we need to be pulling on to maybe grow the business, to optimize the revenue within the practice, to get more profitable. And then from there, we're getting into the QuickBooks or the financial software, pulling out the balance sheets and the P&Ls, and we're analyzing, well, how much revenue is coming in? And then what are we spending on supplies? What are we spending on payroll? Are these appropriate? Is there any more juice to squeeze so we can be more profitable? And then we're forecasting out a budget. And a lot of our clients really appreciate this fact because we're no longer just kind of marching through and making decisions based on feeling. Well, if there's a big purchase or a big decision, or maybe I'm hiring someone, well, instead of wondering where the money went, let's tell the money where to go and let's see if this is going to be a viable decision. So we're working through those budgets and coming up with goals for the providers and the practice every single month and budgets for supplies and expenses, helping really map out those big decisions that we have that have a lot of financial implications.
Awesome. That sounds incredible. So, what do you think are some signs then for a company if they're ready to start working with Maven? What are some signs for them?
Yeah. Gosh, there are a lot of signs, but maybe you want to have a better handle on what's going on in your business. So we have a firm philosophy that it's very difficult to manage something that you're not measuring and tracking.
Mhm.
It's nice to look at the data, once or twice a year, which I think is pretty standard, but there's a big difference in being very intentional about the decisions and being, instead of reactive, very proactive about what's going on within the practice. So looking at this data, analyzing the data, really understanding where the money is coming from and where it's going. If you just bought a laser recently, you want to see an ROI on that laser. So are we actually generating revenue? Maybe you have goals to expand your practice. You want to grow the practice. You want to optimize providers. Well, you should be looking at this data and you should be intentionally tracking and seeing the growth. Maybe you want to scale your business and you have one or two locations now and you want to have three, four, five. There are lots of operational decisions that have financial implications in planning that out. Maybe you want to sell your practice. So we work with a lot of practice owners that eventually want to sell to either a partner or maybe private equity or some other type of buyer. Well, that buyer is evaluating the operational profit. So how can we work with the owner to analyze revenue and find opportunities to increase that revenue and maybe opportunities to reduce the expenses so we can generate more profit?
That's amazing. And I also want to, I've got your book here, by the way. So I want to plug that in. Can I
There it is.
hear med spa profitability? So I think that's awesome that you guys have wrote the book. You wrote the book on med spa
Book.
profitability. So
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's a huge achievement right there. And I feel like that just really speaks to your guys' expertise in that field. So amazing, amazing. And I know that we work
Ew.
directly with you guys too, because you guys do our CFOing for Speakeasy Bookkeeping, right? So just to share a little bit about what you guys have done for us. I mean, like you said, in order to grow it, you have to measure it, right? So it really helped us to on a month to month basis to really focus on, sure, we've got these goals, but practically speaking, how do we get there, right? What's the roadmap to it, right? So we can say all day long, we want to make X amount per month or X amount per year, but breaking that down realistically, what does that look like? What's it going to cost us, right? Because every time we bring on new clients, we have to think about the direct costs associated with that, right? Employees, who do we have to hire in order to cover that work that's now being brought onto the table? So,
Sure. And when
yeah.
is the right time to hire? So I know we've had those conversations, but we have those conversations with all of our clients. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it the right time to hire, or should I maybe optimize the staff that I have right now and then wait and bring on this person at the right time whenever it financially makes sense?
Yes, absolutely. And that's amazing. I mean, before that, we were just kind of guessing. So to really actually attach a number to people, like how much revenue can people handle realistically? And so it's been a game changer for us for sure. So insane value.
Gosh, you all were doing great. So you're giving way too much credit over here, but yeah.
It's been yeah, that's my personal opinion. I feel like I really enjoy our meetings. Every time I get excited for it because I know it's going to be so valuable. So well, awesome. So now I kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit and just kind of ask some questions about, what your experience is working with us. And so what are some aspects of Speakeasy Bookkeeping that have impressed you the most? And why do you continue to refer clients?
Yes, well, this is a long list, but before we can work with any practice or any client in general, we have to have clean financials.
Mhm.
So by clean financials, I need a P&L, I need a balance sheet, and it's not enough to have your husband's nephew's wife's sister that is doing
Mhm.
the books, and then you're getting the financials back maybe once or twice a year. So once again, we need to be intentional about looking at this. If there's a leaky faucet, we want to be able to look at the financials and find the leak and plug the leak and move on. I don't want to wait 6 months to see this. So we refer a lot of our clients to Speakeasy. One, if they don't have a good process, or they don't have a partner that's actively managing their books, or maybe they do have someone that they're using for bookkeeping, but there is a big difference between a good bookkeeper and I don't want to say a bad bookkeeper, but anyway,
You
what
can
I'm
say
getting
whatever
at.
you want.
So
Yeah.
yes, the balance sheet should balance. So
Mhm.
maybe there are loans and there are liabilities and there are things that aren't booked appropriately. There are things in the wrong categories. Having clean financials is paramount to really understanding and being intentional about the decisions that you're making in your business. And if you don't, you have to work with someone like Speakeasy Bookkeeping. So their team is great. Another reason that I love working with Speakeasy, so responsive. So we're typically very collaborative with the bookkeeper and the CPA for any of our clients. So we're kind of filling in the gap between what's happening on the bookkeeping side, what's happening on the tax side, what's happening on the analysis and maybe the tax implementation strategies, or just the operational implementation strategies. But potentially we might want to create more revenue categories.
Mhm.
Potentially, we might want to have some more clarity about where the supply cost spend is going, and we want to add more categories there. Potentially, there is a new revenue line that we want to capture. So we have a lot of back and forth about what's going on within the business, how we would like to see the books be presented, if you
Mhm.
will, in terms of, the chart of accounts on the P&L. If I get information that, hey, we just bought a new piece of equipment, we're going to partner with you and your team and say,
Mhm.
hey, they just bought a piece of equipment. I'm going to send you over the loan documents so that the balance sheet is appropriate so we can start booking these loans. Um, so I think it's really, really important, one, that you have clean books and you have somebody that is responsive. So even if you have a bookkeeper, I think that's been a challenge for a lot of folks out there, that they'll send an email or they'll try to call them and it's 7 to 10 business days. Well, you all respond literally within, sometimes a couple of minutes, but at the most, I think like an hour. Like, that is just incredible. So, anyway, I think that that definitely separates you from other bookkeepers out there. It's just your care, your attention to detail, your collaborativeness to work with us, to work with your clients, and the responsiveness, like hands down, like that, just gold stars a million times over.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of that. And yeah, I know that our work is incredibly important to you guys, right? So it's you guys have been you're like I said, you're doing the roadmap for all their financial decisions. So, if your data that you're receiving is inaccurate, how does that look for, all the future projections for the entire year, right? So it's like,
Sure. It's hard. So bad data in, bad advice, and bad data out.
right.
So we send a lot of folks over to Speakeasy if we get their financials and they're like, oh yeah, I've got a bookkeeper. Well, we get the books and it's missing all types of things and things are miscategorized. So Speakeasy does a great job with cleanup.
Mhm.
So you probably have the counts on this, and I probably should too, but we've sent you a lot of clients that they need to have some serious cleanup to some historical data, and then we need to have a good process moving
Mhm.
forward. We also refer a lot of our more sophisticated clients. I know you take clients of all sizes. You could have, um, you could be a startup and, starting to create increases in your revenue and, grow along the way. We will send a lot of our sophisticated clients as well. They've got multiple locations. I don't know. I might put you to sleep on this conversation, but are you cash
For
accounting or
me.
are you accrual
Yeah.
accounting? So, and if you are scaling and you take a lot of prepaids, you do a lot of packages, you have a lot of deposits, then it might be an opportunity for you to think about switching to accrual. Do you have goals to sell in the future? Your buyer is most likely going to convert your financials to accrual so they can understand, well, I want to look at the revenue for the services that are actually rendered, not whenever you receive the payments. And
Hmm.
I want to see the supply costs for when the services are rendered as well. So, a lot of these more sophisticated clients, you all just do such a great job because not only do you have the attention to detail, you're super responsive, but you have familiarity with the practice management softwares. And there's not a
Hmm.
lot of bookkeepers out there that are going into the practice management softwares and understanding, how do I get these COG reports or these supply reports? What about the inventory reports? What about the liability reports? So if you are switching from cash to accrual, you've got goals to sell, you've got a lot of, prepaids, things like that. Speakeasy does this with ease. So
Awesome. Thank you. Well, yeah, I know too. Yeah. I mean, you're familiar too with the EMR systems, and we definitely had to spend a lot of time pulling apart all those reports. The NOTI, aesthetic record, Next Tech, Patient Now has been, it's definitely a whole nother world. And so we've definitely have had to get our teeth in there. So, can you share any examples? I kind of started to touch on this a little bit, but can you share any examples from your clients who have benefited from our collaboration?
yes. So specifically, I just kind of was touching on this, but had a client that whenever we started working together, they were opening their second location. They now have four. They also have a management services organization, or an MSO, if you will, and they they're on the scaling path. Their bookkeeper was fine, but it became more difficult to manage some of these intercompany loans. So, as you're scaling, you might have to get a loan under this entity, but it's really to pay for what you're doing at this other entity or this other location. So
Mhm.
just managing the back and forth and the moving pieces there. Now, fast forward like 3 years, I think you've been working with them, at least that long, but we recently switched them from cash accounting to accrual because at any given time, they have about $2 to $3 million of liabilities. And whenever I say liabilities, I know that's a very accounting, accounting-ish esque-ish term,
Hmm.
but that's like all the prepaid. So if you do memberships that bank, that's all of those. If you're selling packages, a lot of folks will have like these big holiday events and they'll get a lot of money in the door, but whether that's gift cards, prepaids, what have you, but the services might not be rendered yet. And those things, if you're on accrual, those have to go on the balance sheet until they're come in and redeemed.
Yep.
So if you have something like that, it's really important that you are looking at the cash that's coming in the door and managing the cash flow. But it's also helpful from an analysis standpoint that you're actually looking at when the services are rendered and the costs associated for rendering those and
Hmm.
kind of managing those. So you all have done an exceptional job at one, kind of navigating the growth, all of the intricacies of this one particular business, the
Hmm.
intercompany loans, adding more locations, all of the loans that they have just in general for all of the locations. Um, then managing all of the liabilities and managing the balance sheets and supply inventory. There's just lots that go into it. I know we've sent over several clients that whenever we got their books, they were in disarray. They weren't usable. So once again, if
Right.
I'm going to use that to give you financial advice, it's not going to
Hmm.
be very good financial advice. So we're only as good as the data that we have at hand. And we can look at it and know pretty quickly that, there needs to be some cleanup. Like
Hmm.
there's lots of things that are either missing or it's just been miscategorized or it's not been managed well. So
Yeah.
you should be getting your financials back monthly
Hmm.
and at the very latest. So, right now we're at the beginning of March, but you should get your February financials ideally between like the 15th and the 30th at the latest. So
Hmm.
it depends on whenever your, bank and credit card statements close. It might be a little bit longer for you. But if you're not going to get February financials until April, May, June, that's way too long. You
Yep.
have to be looking at this every single month and you need to, have a system and have a partner like
Mhm.
Speakeasy, a good bookkeeper that is reconciling and preparing the financials and sending those over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because now at that point we're no longer being proactive, right? We're just playing on the defense and just putting out fires at that point if you're getting your financials super late. So absolutely. And I recall that account, the one that you were referring to. And I know a big aspect of that account as well was all the intercompany, not just intercompany transactions, but the gift card redemptions between the locations. I remember that being a large part of us pulling apart those reports and really trying to figure out if gift cards are being purchased here and they're being redeemed here. How are we tracking that and how can we capture that on the balance sheet on the monthly basis and move things around as we need to. So yeah, I do recall that account for sure.
It can get complicated. And then sometimes
it,
I even make it more complicated because I'm getting in there and I'm digging in and I'm like, wait. And then Anjelica and, Kim that's on the account. And then some of the other bookkeepers are like, no, Kristen, this is what happened. And then they're able to like clearly articulate it and break it down for the client so that the client understands what's going on either. Financials should not be Greek.
Mhm.
And I hate whenever I'm working with a bookkeeper or a CPA and they talk down to the client or they try to make things more complicated than it is. You should not feel like your financials are mysterious. So, another great thing about working with Speakeasy is, they'll break it down and, it's not a condescending conversation. It's really from an educational standpoint. So, hey, let me take what you have going on. Let me do it the right way. Let me be responsive. But if you have a question, I'm available and I want to work through this with you and I want to make sure that you understand as well. And I think that's super important.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, thank you, Kristen. I have kind of just I mean, we really touched base on this, but my final question was just why do you think, just to wrap it all up, do you think business owners and entrepreneurs should be considering partnering with Speakeasy Bookkeeping?
Yes.
Just as
All
a final
things. So if
all
you're not getting any of these things, if you're waiting weeks on end for your financials, if you're not sure that they're accurate, if you are maybe you have these goals to grow, you need to switch from cash to accrual, or you'd like more detail in your revenue and your supplies, Speakeasy has the experience for that. So, if you're not getting responses, if you're having to wait weeks on end, if someone is sending you an email and you're like, whoa, that's Greek. I don't
yeah.
read Greek or
Yeah.
understand Greek. There's probably an opportunity that you might need to pick a new partner. And that can seem like a daunting conversation. One, if you don't have a bookkeeper, it's an easy yes. You need to start working with Speakeasy. You should not be having a business and waiting till tax time to see your financials for the first time every single month consistently. Um, but if any of these things are an opportunity for you, Speakeasy makes it really easy to onboard, and you have a dedicated team and a partner so that you know that your financials are accurate at all times.
Mhm.